we're gonna get started. I don't know. I think we typically would do introductions, but I'm not sure that we need to do that. What? Oh, sorry, I forgot we have a new member of our team. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm the new coordinator of communications in Graduate Remote Management Services. Been here about 2 weeks, a week and a half.
Yeah. Yes, so she's new. Bit of a trial by fire. We're a busy office, but a lot of what she's going to be doing, and we're going to be adding to Graham and our tools that allow you to communicate better with your applicants, CRM type features, and this is the first. This is sort of the first step in that direction. We're giving you the capability here of what we're going to talk about today to create automated email messages that are sent to applicants based on criteria that you determine, filtering, so you can target specific types of applicants and customize the emails any way you like. But we'll start at the top, and I created this basic guide, so I'm going to follow along with this. But if you have questions about anything pertaining to the section we're working with, feel free to ask. And then I want to keep this on one page, but at the end I have I imagine you're going to have some questions, so we'll address those now. What we're going to be focused on today is what is in the system now, not necessarily what could be in the future, whether it's related to email or any other type of CRM features. So we'll start now with the communications module. Stephen Shaw, good to see you. Stephen, grab one of those handouts there. It's just a guide we're gonna be walking through, and so we're gonna start underneath the management menu. There are 2 new items here, and you won't have access. These are actually in the application now, but at the top level, we have to allow security has to be set so that you can access these 2 new features that you'll need. So we'll start with the application manager. So anyway, if you get back and look and they're not there, that's why. So here we have a list of, up here, it's like a lot of the other screens. You have a program. I have access to everything, so your list isn't going to look as ridiculous as mine. But I'm choosing a program here, and then I have a message category, which is just a type of message, and then the status, and that's essentially whether it's active or not. So you could create a message and make it active, or if you're not sure you want to enable it yet, you can leave it as disabled. But all of these are enabled, and these are real messages that are currently being sent out. So what I wanted to talk about here on the list view is this is where you would go to for a given degree program. This is how you would determine what messages are being sent out for those students. So right here we have yeah, okay. So this is just a message that goes out to applicants, and as you can see, this one is we've sent over 7,000 of this to various students, and this is all real information. This is live on the site. The number not sent. So I want to focus on these numbers. So you might look at these and say that's a huge number. Well, that's the total number being sent, not the total number for this degree program. Some of these messages are sent to multiple degree programs. As you get more specific and you create a message for a given degree program or a couple degree programs, obviously the numbers are going to be a lot lower. But this is where you go to determine what number have been sent, the number not sent, and a message might not have been sent if there was an error of some type, and all of that is stored in the log, so you can go and look. But the number read is probably the most interesting column here. When a message is sent, we know whether or not the applicant opened it. So you could create a message and say a marketing type message, and you would know when the application, when the messages were read. So or, you know, students are just deleting them and not even looking, you know that as well, because the number wouldn't increment. So that's a kind of a cool new feature that, that we've added recently, just the ability to determine, how effective. I guess it's not the best judge of being effective, but at least you know that students are opening them, that they're getting to the intended recipient. Yeah, just some basic information here, but so anyway, this is sort of your command center for all your messages. Now, all of these here are read-only, and the reason for that is this, and we may change this as we go, but we've created a lot of messages sort of at the university level that are sent to all degree programs, or 100 degree programs. And you may have access to 5 of those degree programs, and somebody else might have access to another 5, and so forth and so on. So the best way to sort of control security for us, we determined, was to make these messages read-only for now. So you can look at all the settings for these messages, and you can see what the filtering options are and all that, but you can't change them because you would be affecting essentially other degree programs. So for now, we're making a lot of these, a lot of the messages that go out to applicants read-only. And as you become more familiar with the interface and you might want to create more specialized messages, then you can look at one of these and say, okay, well, you know, I'd rather just send that message myself because I want to put in a paragraph or some other, or you want to change an image for a given degree program. In that case, then you have full control. So what we would do then is you remove that degree program from the sort of group email, and you would have a specific one. But for now, these are read-only, so I just wanted to explain that. And this column indicates they're read-only. I also put them in a group called read-only, a category called read-only for now, but we could always change that. So we'll look at a real one here. Look at this one. Okay. So the first page, and if you're following along, I'm just looking at the message setup interface. There are 4 pages to the message setup interface, and you walk through them. And the first step is for you to choose a category, and typically you're going to just choose general messages and the type of message. Now, you could send messages to applicants, or you could send a message to the departmental contact. So, for example, if you wanted an email anytime somebody submitted an application and they said yes to, say, the felony question, you could create an email message and with those options, and it would automatically send your departmental contact a notification. I'm not sure how useful that would be, or if you'd ever need to do that, but we do it quite a bit at the university level when we want to be notified of certain events. Somebody submits an application and certain criteria are true. So that's why that option's there. But 99% of the time, you're going to be sending to just applicants. And then the default message. We have this idea of creating email templates, meaning emails that for example, an acceptance message is like we have like a boilerplate version of some of these messages, and it was just helpful for us in creating new messages to be able to go look and say, yeah, I want a message just like that one, and then fine tune from there. However, we've added a copy feature. I'll just jump back to the list view. There's this copy button. So let's say that you wanted to create your own version of this message, you could just hit make copy, and it would create a new instance of that message that you could fine tune yourself. So that's why on the first page, we're keeping this idea of the template here, but it really doesn't matter, because typically what you're going to do is find a message that's close to the one you want to create and just make a copy of it and then modify that. So that's the first page. And now the second page is probably the most complex, but it looks a little overwhelming, but the idea here is that you're determining who should receive this message. So I have access to all my all programs here, so you might only have 5 or 6 or 10 in this list or 2. I'm just going to pick this group here. And then over here you have tons of fields that will allow you to fine tune who's going to receive this message. So if I say determine your reply, And then here I create, I select a condition. So I say equals, and I might say ball 13. And I might say, if I could read,
Current status code.
yeah, that's a good one. Okay. And I could say the current status code equals AC. So I'm looking at all the accepted applicants for these degree programs should receive some, this message. Now this button is very important here. And it's important because this will tell you how close you are with your filters. If you're way off, if, for example, if you create a set of complex filters up here, let's say you add, it could be 3, 4, 5, it could even be 1, but you want to know, this allows you to determine how many people are going to be getting that message. Yeah, so right now, I selected these degree programs, and I said the term of the year is fall 13 and accepted. So this is showing me that there were 14 applicants accepted, and these are, if I go ahead with this message and enable it, it's going to go out to these people right now. Now, it does check the rules as you go, so it's not like it'll only send when you create the message or come to this page. When we get to the last page, I'll show you what the options are for how often it should check to see if these rules are true. These rules are, the rules we're creating here are true. So this is an important page, and this is the how you determine your recipient group.
Next question.
Yes.
Is there a way to have a drop-down menu for the enter value? So if you put in current status code, is there a way to program it so then the enter value would be a drop-down menu like AC, AD?
Well, we could, but that would preclude you from doing this. This in list, and then saying AC. So if we did that, we would be limited to say equals or does not equal one value as opposed to it contains or is in list. So it's a little more flexible doing it this way. But you keep in mind, when you create a message, you're just making sure the rules are right once. And once you have determined your sort of the cohort that's going to be receiving the message, you won't have to spend any more time on this page. All of the modifying and tweaking is done on the next page, which is the actual message. So I agree. Yeah, it'd be more convenient if I could just get a list of values that are in the system now. But things like is less than or before for dates, like some of these options are dates. So you might say I only want people from this date to that date, and then then it would be a matter of grabbing every possible date in your drop down.
If you wanted to do more than one, like for this current status code, if you wanted to do multiple accept codes or something though, then would you have to do that same current status multiple times?
No, you would just do AC.
Oh, you can comma? Okay.
AD.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do that, and I'll just test rules for that.
Well, what's the difference between in this list and is equal to?
Equal to is one value. In list means it could be any of those values.
Is
So
there-
right now,
okay.
I just added 2 new to that, and I said in list instead of equals.
Okay.
And I have 27 now.
Okay. Will there be like a lookup key or some kind of so that users will know what these choices
In
are?
most
these
cases, it's obvious.
selections?
Like the status code, most people know those. Things like, but what'll happen is when you test the rules, and I'll show you. When you test the rules, it grabs the column that you're using and shows you what the values are here. So it's not a matter, in other words, this is showing you why it matched, what the values were. But again, some of these are just yes, no, that you would enter. And there are some examples here of what you enter, but it really isn't all that complicated. If you had any questions about what should be entered, you could always let us know. But I know it seems overwhelming now, but in most cases, you are going to focus on these 2 fields, for your messages or date applied. If you're interested in doing something more advanced, whether they're accepted, whether the application is complete, yes or no. That's another common one. Yeah, whether they're an international applicant, you might want to give international applicants a different message. So, any other questions about this screen?
how flexible are I'm not sure if that's the right word, on the values. I know in Gravnik, I always consider FL13 the code, and the description is fall 2013. So if you actually typed in fall space 2013, is that not a valid value?
Yeah, it wouldn't find any matches.
Okay.
I mean, I could do
So I
that.
guess we'll learn that by.
Yeah.
So Mike, is there a way to get us like a cheat sheet for like each field, what the right key is?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that could be done, but I think the status code is really the only one that you would need to do that for. Because the rest of these are either dates or yes,
Even
no.
the format of dates though,
Yeah,
sometimes
date
you don't even
formats.
know what the date format should be, because it changes between like access versus this, you
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, I have a note here. It's just, the
Oh,
date
okay.
values are just month, date, year, year. So, again, we tried to keep this simple and powerful. So, you know, and when you go back and you look at this list, you may, I can think about how we might add something here. Maybe if I might be able to add just a little link here, and I can look at this field and see what you picked, and then you can say like, you know, show me all the available values or something. It's better than nothing, and that's a good alternative to giving you a pick list here, because at least you can see what the possible values could be.
That would be fun.
Okay. Can somebody make a note of that? Thank you. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. So, we'll go to the next page, and the next page is really where you decide what's going to be in the message. And just like your email client, you have up here, what is the sender's name? When this message is received, what do you want the sender's name to be? What email address do you want it to come from? You know, if you want to copy somebody on it, or blind copy yourself or something, you can do that here. And then, of course, the message subject. And down here's where you create your message content. So you could paste in this field from Word or whatever, or wherever you have the content. You could just start typing. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to say hi. And right up here we have merge tags, merge fields. Just like in Word, if you've ever done a mail merge in Word, it works the exact same way. There are certain fields here, and if you choose to insert one of these merge fields, at the time the email is sent, it will go and grab the correct value. So you have your typical, you know, first name, last name. You have a link to the site if you wanted to give them a link to the site. You can put in the program they applied to, the year and determined year of their application, the degree they were accepted to. So I'll just do a little bit of that here now. So I'm going to say insert. I put the cursor there. It doesn't. I mean, if you don't put it in the right place, you can just grab this and move it. But let's see.
And you can do multiples of those, so you could have salutation and then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. You can create the whole string. We can do that. You know, it's silly. It'll be silly, but. Oh, okay. Good stuff. There. That should be there. Okay. And I wish I could see. Just let me know if I spell anything incorrect. I can't read that. See? And I'm blaming this keyboard, just so you guys know. Okay. So I'm going to just insert the degree program. And yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so you could have a bunch of content here with some of these dynamic fields. And what you can do is, I mean, you can make certain things bold. I mean, you have this formatting toolbar. I don't know if you've seen other screens that have this, but it works just like it would in Word. if you wanna make certain words bold, you can do that. And you can add a list and things like that if you wanna get more advanced. But I'm gonna preview it now. And before I even talk about the images down here, I just wanna preview the message just to show you how the rendering works. So it's like, it just grabs, we have a default set of information for your preview. And so I have, welcome to the architecture business administration program. So this is all dynamic, and this is as well. Oh, I'm sorry, and the citation is dynamic too. But down here we have a bunch of images that we've loaded. Now you can upload your own images if you want a different header on top of the email, and I'll show you how to do that later on in the session. But right now I just have some basic ones in here. And this is the one that you probably see. It goes out in all the messages. But we have some fancier ones that are more for promotion. I choose this. That's obnoxious. But they're in there now, and we've actually used these in some of our promotional emails. So we'll go back to this. And then there's an optional tagline. That again, these are promotional taglines, but you don't need to include that, or a footer, and we have a default footer that can appear at the bottom. You may have one that you're already sending out, but if you do, you can upload that and use that in your messages. And then down at the bottom. So anyway, let me do this. Let me load this up with. Let me load this up with. Let me just show you how that looks. So, you got this, and then you have your header down here. Insert. Yeah. Okay. Down here are just some options, and there are just that. If you choose, you can include login information in the message. So if you were to say to applicants, return to a site to do something, it's sometimes helpful to include the login information if you'd like to. You can allow recipients to opt out. So if it's not a critical message, and it's sort of it's informational and it's kind of good to know, you can allow them to opt out of messages. And what that means is it's going to just put a little tag at the bottom of the message that says if you'd like, you've seen it. If you'd like to stop receiving non-critical communication from UB, click here, and then they can opt out of certain messages. And that's totally your call. Most of the messages we don't allow them to opt out of because they're things like acceptance messages or rejection, or this is how you get your UBIT name. So those go to all applicants or all recipients, I should say. This is linking images rather than embedding them. That is probably an option we'll remove. But right now, and just to explain that for a second, an image that appears in an email message could either be embedded in the email message so that when the applicant receives it, the image is already with the message, or it could just be like an HTML page and a pointer to an image. So the image, the only advantage there, it could be that you might have an image that you already have on your web server that you want to point to. Then you could choose that option, and it would, rather than embed it in the image, it would just, as the email opened, it would go and grab the image and bring it down to the recipient. Again, like I said, I think I'll remove that because it's one choice you probably don't have to make, but it was important for us at the university level to be able to control whether or not images were embedded or linked. And then you have the capability to set a high priority indicator, which just means they'll get the little exclamation point when the message is received. So these are the options that you have for the look and feel of the email. And then the final step. Any questions about this? Images, anything?
Can you go back up to the top again?
Sure. This section? So, and there are help. And if you're not sure what any of these do, there are these little help bubbles that will tell you pretty much everything you need to know.
Do we get to control, I know I've seen this in some applications like this, where even though it's coming from Lisa's email, you can make it have a reply to, so that they get the reply, it doesn't go back to her, it goes to somebody else or some other one, or is that in the next page? Cause if they get this and they click reply, they're all gonna go back.
No, that's
To
just a
you, right?
default, that can be changed to whatever email address you want on there.
No, I think he's saying.
Oh, so sender's address doesn't have to be the real
No.
sender's address.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
there are some systems where you have to have the real one in there, but then you can put in.
Yeah, the reply to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shelters,
Yeah, if that
okay.
becomes important, I mean, just to tell you the truth, behind the scenes, there is a field for the reply to, but I just felt it complicated this. You know, there'd be one more option somebody would have to enter if they chose to do that, but I could always add that back in.
Well, no, I think just as long as it's clear that sender means,
Yeah, you
that's
can-
what we want it to appear as,
Yeah.
regardless of what you're really sending it.
That's
from.
right.
That's fine there.
Yeah.
First
Okay.
because they don't hear something, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the sender's email is the reply to,
In this
Yeah.
case, yes.
so we could just change that to
Yes.
reply to,
Right, whoever the recipient should be to the reply. Okay, and then the final step, this is where you determine whether the message is essentially active or not. And by default, when you create a message, it's disabled. When you copy a message from the list view, when you click the copy button, I want to make a copy of this message, it automatically disables it. Just in case you wanted to go in and tweak the filter settings or the content of the message. So it doesn't automatically start sending this copy that you created. So when you enable it, it's going to look at these options. You have the capability to set date ranges, so you only want it active for a month or you only want it active for a week, you can do that here. And that's required, you know, we want you to enter that because we, just so messages aren't sent out when they're no longer, let's say filters are no longer applicable. For example, if you created a message with a term filter from 2 years ago, there's no reason why that message should be active. Nobody's going to get it because essentially all of those people who applied to that term have already received it. Okay, so let's talk about the frequency. How often should it be sent? So some messages you only want to go to the applicant once, and that's fine. But other times, the reminder type message you might want to send every 2 days, every week. And let me give you a scenario for that. Let's say you have applications. The end of the semester is approaching in a month, and you have 100 applicants who have not completed their applications. So you could create a message that said, for a given semester, applicants who have not completed, you can say yes, complete, yes, no, and is no. And then you can come here and say, send this message every 3 days until the conditions that you specified on the filter page are no longer true, meaning they would have submitted their application. So it'll continue to send the message until the application is complete in the scenario I just described. This last option is how many times. So if you send this message every day, you really want to annoy your applicants. You're going to send it every day. You say, well, until they've received it 10 times. And by the time, if they received it 10 times and they still haven't completed their application, then you kind of wash your hands of it. But most of the time, we do have a reminder message that goes out. Do you know what the duration is on the reminder message? It's, I'm not sure if it's
The
ever.
ones that we're sending out now.
Yeah.
I think Chris does it every 15 days.
Oh, every 15 days, okay. Until received, some number of times. But, so this gives you some flexibility. I know a lot of systems like this only allow it to be sent once. So this gives you a little more control over how often the message is sent. And then finally, we have sort of when should the rules that you create on a filter page, when should those be looked at? And most often you're going to do constantly monitor. But there could be cases when you want to check to see if the rules you created are true when an event occurs. So there are 3 main events that we look at. When the application is first submitted. So if you only want the rules to check for certain conditions when the applicant submits the application, then you would choose the second option. Another case could be when it's submitted for formal review. And then the final one is whenever a change is made in the application manager. So whenever somebody in the application manager changes something, you want to check for certain conditions. And these are more important, the last three are really more for your, if you choose to use this as a notification tool for your department, as opposed to messages to applicants. It's more important that, for example, if you say, whenever somebody makes a change to an international application that has, you know, that some other filter option is true, you want to be notified, then you would choose this. You know, that's the only time you care, is when a change is made to the application. But again, most cases you're going to choose constantly monitor, and the way that works is this: we have there's a sort of this what we call an engine that runs for communication that's constantly running, and what it does is it looks at all the active messages and it looks at them one at a time. It says it runs the sort of a query, you know, just like we did when we tested the filter rules and we found 26 applicants who met the criteria that we set. I'm just going to go back to that page and try to make more sense on that page. Okay. So what this engine does is it like every 10 minutes or so it goes through and it says, okay, so for this message, I'm looking at fall 13 and any status code in this list. And it might, and then for these programs, and it might find 26 applicants every time it runs, every 10 minutes. But so look at those 26 and say, okay, of these 26, I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump right back here. Of these 26, if it's only sent once and somebody's received it, okay, they're out. They can't get it. But if the option here is of these 26, and who of these people haven't received it in 7 days, or haven't received it, you know, past the number, it'll send a message to them. So if you have set send only once here and then constantly monitor for matches, that's probably the most the best way to ensure that the message is going to be sent whenever the conditions are true, as opposed to when a certain event occurs. Only when they've submitted, or only when they've submitted a formal review, or only when their application is changed. So for your purposes, I would say 99% of the time, unless you're using departmental notifications, the message is intended to be received by the department to let you know something, then I would stick with this first option. And again, in this part of it is up to you. It really, this is all based on the kind of message you're sending, whether it's a reminder or a one-time only. Any questions about this last page?
Yes. Tell me again what received, how that's defined until received. What does that mean? Does that mean when the student reads it?
Yeah, until.
So it's the same as read?
No, it's until received. It should say actually until sent a number of times. Can some of you know that? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that is confusing. Yeah, and until sent. Yeah, it makes the assumption it's received, but yeah, until sent a certain number of times.
I'm sorry, because I just don't follow what was going on with those 4 buttons at the end. So
Okay, this is.
you've got your filter matches that you set up at the beginning to say, you know, AC or whatever codes or whatever dates. Is this another level of filtering on top of those filters, just in certain
No, it's not.
scenarios?
It's more. I wouldn't think of it as a filter. It's more. These last options are giving you control over when it should check to see if those rules apply. So it's either it's constantly checking. This could be true anytime, or you only want to check when the application is submitted, or submit a formal review, or when a change is made in the application
I guess
manager.
I'm having a hard time thinking of a scenario, like what's an example of when you might do that then? Like if you,
Somebody's
incomplete and we'll finish the application.
But then Mike, is that gonna hold? So like, let's say we make it active for a year, and we want it to pick up all not reviewed, right? So there's 26 today, then we have 2 more coming tomorrow, right?
Yes.
So it's gonna send it to the 26, and when as new people come in, it's gonna send it to the new people.
Yes.
Right? So then what's the right, or what frequency?
Constantly. Constantly monitor.
Megan,
Well,
everything
it has
is
to-
set up for you? Right,
It's set exactly the way you see it right there.
okay.
Yeah. So.
I guess I'm just like, for NRs, we'll go in every 2 weeks, and when it's NR, we go and actually export a list and then send an email. And then obviously when we're incomplete,
it should be sent only once?
Well,
Or,
yeah. I would, it's a message you would only send to the applicant once, or is it a reminder type message?
so you're sending them to different, those are the messages that are being sent each time the status changes. So you only wanna get it once because they get message each time.
No, it's MR to be complete. So if somebody's been MR for a month, then they're gonna get that MR message again to encourage them to complete it, or move, go to the next phase. So it's not like a decision, really, it's more, hey, we see you started an application, we encourage you to go ahead, log back in, and continue sending this information.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that every couple of weeks.
Right, but it sounds to me like that would be a reminder where you would say, send every certain number of days while those conditions are true, while it's still in there.
Yes.
Keep
Got it.
sending.
Thanks.
Okay, and then, I just thought of a scenario where you might want to use these last, as I said, these are more, they could be messages sent to applicants, but these are very useful for, let's say you want an email every time somebody submitted a formal review sent to your department. Well, you could just create a message, say, and use those merge tags and put the name in the degree program, and it would send you a notification every time somebody submitted a formal review, if you chose to do that. Or every time an application is changed, in the application, I mean, that would be annoying as hell, especially, if you have people going in and changing, because you would get a message every time something gets changed.
Okay, so,
But-
yeah, so we can set these up not only for applicants, but for our purposes.
Yes, yeah, for your own notification, and on the first page, I'll just go back there. So here, you'd say, sent to the
Yeah,
departmental staff,
okay.
okay?
Mhm.
Again, in the beginning, your focus is going to be, communication with the applicants, but these are tools built in. I didn't want to remove those tools at the application manager level, even though we make use of them at the top. We actually have a message that's sent when somebody has a felony conviction or has been, had academic dismissal. An automated message goes to GEMS with all the information, and that's, the same tools are used. So I didn't want to remove them. I didn't want to dumb it down too much just in case somebody had a need for it. At the same time, I tried to remove enough where it wasn't entirely confusing, because we do have additional options at the top level for filtering and things, but all the basics are here. So, any other questions generally about creating new messages or setting filters or anything like that before I jump over to images?
I can't remember if when an application is complete, can a student still go in and edit their email address if it changes?
No.
Okay, so that, I could see that could be an issue if we're going to use this for continual monitoring or continual communication with a cohort of, for example, accepted students throughout the summer. When students graduate, sometimes their school address changes or they move or whatever. Is that something to consider as an option to allow that field to be edited by students after?
Yeah, well, when the applicant confirms their acceptance, we do ask them to confirm their permanent address and social security number if they'd like to be eligible for financial aid. And so we could add the email address to that page as well. So I don't know if you've ever seen that, but the applicant logs in and they have an option. I want to confirm my acceptance, and I'm definitely coming to UV, or I want to decline it. And if they choose to confirm it, a little page opens up where they just verify their address, their social security number, and I think there are a few more fields there as well.
It's just a basic bio demo.
Yeah, just basic bio demo. But we could add email address to that. Now, what's going to complicate that further is down the road, we're going to have a universal sort of username for every one of our applicants, so that it's going to be the email address. So, we'll, at some point, they're going to be able to log in, and if they've applied to UV 6 times through the system, they're going to see all their applications, and then they're going to click the application and then go in as they do now. Right now, they have a unique login for every application, which is it's kind of annoying for applicants who've applied multiple times. So that's the only thing I can think of with the email address. changing. You know, this is sort of, what we're saying is, this is my preferred email address. Yeah, if you're gonna send the communication, this is the best address to use. Maybe that's something we could do in the email message itself. Just, now we have an opt-out feature at the bottom. Maybe we could have a link there, you know, update my email address, where they would click it and then go to a secure page, but we would ask them to log in and be able to change their email address there, just so that it's sort of outside the system. Because, you know, they may already have been accepted, but you want to send them a message 2 years later, which makes
Or even
sense.
3 months later,
Yeah,
sometimes
like
their
3
school
years.
address ends when they graduate.
Right, or you might have a survey for, you know, postgraduate survey that you want to know where you're working, those kinds of things, and the ability to use this tool really is dependent on how accurate those email addresses are, especially, like I said, if they're using a UB address and they've been gone for years, then it's not valid anymore. Yeah, I don't know the best, that's a good question, I don't know the best way to update that information. Excuse me, you know that? Okay.
Is it possible, to have the option to send it, their unique email addresses are in there once they're admitted as a field in Gravit. So would it be possible, once they're admitted, to send emails to their buffalo.edu addresses rather than when they put it in Gravit?
What we have, and I'm not sure it's always the case, but we don't actually have their email address. You know, we don't pull that from InfoSource. We have their UBIT name, and in all cases, it's not just the UBIT name at Buffalo.edu for email. So if there were a way for us to maybe get from InfoSource, you know, based on their person number, or their employee ID or whatever, to be able to pull in their actual UB address, that would be a good solution. But right now, we don't have that. We go into InfoSource every night for other things, so that wouldn't be a big deal to add that. But typically, we stick with the address they used when they applied. But, you know, being a little proactive now, we have to think ahead as Norm suggested and say, well, what are you gonna do? What would you do for applicants who already graduated or are already a year?
I wasn't even thinking that far ahead, I'm thinking you accept someone in February, and now you wanna send them continuing orientation information such in July. And some, it's not common, but some students, when they graduate in May, that's when their school email address ceases.
Right.
And so, but yet that's what they have in their application.
Yeah.
And that's what their preferred address is at that time.
Right, at that time. And they could lose that address, yeah. Yeah, and we could be a little intelligent about it too. We could probably determine whether, you know, if it's an EDU address and it's not Buffalo, and, you know, we could say that it's likely they're not using that address anymore, you know, as opposed to a Yahoo or a Hotmail or anything. And most students would, as you probably see, you know, would use one of the free services, but not. So that's a good point. So, yeah, we'll think about that. Yeah, we could say, you know, be sure you use an email address that, you know, that you're not going.
I think there's a question out there about how long will this email be active, isn't there a question?
No, it's more about the mailing address.
Yeah, but you're
Oh, okay.
But the email address
This
is.
is really more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly, it would be perfectly legitimate for us to request that they use an email address that will still be valid 2 years from now. Or even 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's just look at, I mean, image management is very simple. It just gives you a place where you can upload your own images. And right now, I don't know if it looks weird, I have these bizarre images in here now, so it looks kind of crazy on this giant monitor. But you essentially add new images by, just like you would, oh, darn. I have to enable. I'm actually not allowed to add new images here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna jump up to, can I edit them? Okay, it's not letting me add them, but at least I can show you what this page looks like. You choose, there are 3 types of images: a header that we saw that goes on the top, there's a tagline that goes underneath it, and then there's the footer that goes at the bottom. So what you would do is you would just click browse, and then if I were on my own computer, this would make more sense, because I had a bunch of images there I was going to use. But it's just like when you upload a document, you would just go point at an image. Let's see, maybe they have an image here. select the image.
There's a pictures folder.
Um, okay. And, I'm not sure I want to save this one. Let me pick one of the ugly ones, just so I, because this is real, we're on the site. So let me go back to images, and I'll choose one that might be a good place to reach about. Oh, that's really annoying. I did this one. Oh, did you create that?
You know, not with that, but.
Well, I suggest you use the penguins instead. Everyone loves penguins.
You don't want to smell it.
Yeah.
Coral.
That's the message you want.
So there we go. And it's actually, and I debated with as to whether or not I should shrink the images, but I would rather show them in full size here on the screen, just so you know, oh my God, I just chose an image that's gigantic or too small. At least this gives you an idea of proportion here. And this, again, the resolution on this monitor is really, really low. So on your machine, it look normal.
Do we have the ability, when it's actually in the message, does it have the handlebar so we can size it? Or is it?
That's a good question. No, right now, for the header image, it'll keep it at a certain size. And the reason for that, well, one step at a time. But you can add images to emails that actually embed them, just like you do the merge tags. You could point to images and embed them that way. If the image is already available on a website somewhere, you can kind of point at the image, and I'll show you how to do that. But this is sort of this would be a case where you just want to add the image once, and you want to use that same header for all your email messages. It's a lot simpler to just upload it as a header and just pick it from the drop-down, than embedding it in the email itself using the toolbar. So that's the distinction between creating these sort of boilerplate images you want to keep reusing over and over again, and then maybe something specific like a signature, that you might want at the bottom. You've probably seen those in our messages. Well, I can show you how to do that.
So if it's embedded, if the image is embedded though, then you get the handlebars.
Yes, then you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
But these are sort of,
These are fixed.
yeah, these would be images that you might already be using in your email messages that you just want to upload and make available inside of GradNet that are already sized properly. For email, you probably wouldn't want an image that's wider than, say, 650 pixels, just in case someone's reading it on their phone. You've probably seen you have to scroll to the right for 10 miles if the image is too wide. So let me just, I'll jump back there and I'll show you that you can embed images. Okay, so what I just did was I just copied the location of this image here in the GradNet header, and then I'm going to go in and just go to this page. So inside this message, let's say you wanted to insert your own header, and this is at the top of the message. You would just, there's this button here. You put for insert image. And it asks you for the URL to the image. So the only caveat here is that the image has to already be available on your web server somewhere. You can't be on your computer. It has to, you could be tricky and upload it through the other screen, but there really is, if you want it in the middle of the message, that would be a way to get it on the GradNet server. But here, we're just going to put in the URL. Okay, and then a description. And I'm going to title it. This is all for people who use screen readers. So because they can't see the image, it'll actually read when they use their screen reader. It'll read a description of what the image is. And appearance. And you have some options here as to whether how text is wrapped around it or whatever. And you can change this at any time. So I'm just going to say insert, and you'll see it's right here. And you get your handlebars, and you can make it dynamic if you want. And using some of the other options, you can tell it how you want text to flow around it. But I wouldn't suggest trying to use this to create like a newsletter type of email. If you were going to do that, I would say it'd be best to try to maybe work in Word or something first. first and then paste it in and see how it goes. But yeah, you can move these around. I'd say that you're probably gonna use this, and if somebody does have a signature and you want us to upload it to Gravit server and give you the URL, it only takes us a few minutes, we can do that for you. Or you can just upload it yourself through the images, feature, and then point to it.
Do you know, so like scroll down a little to the footer, can you, as an image, if you have a hyperlink for Facebook, does it work?
Yeah, and I'll just go back and show you how we do that now. So let me just preview this message. Okay. So if I go down the bottom here, these are all hot. And the way you do that is with an image map, if you've ever created one. So you have an image, and then with an image map, it's an HTML thing. And a lot of programs allow you to do it. You can say, okay, you can highlight an area and say, okay, when they mouse over this or they click here in this singular image, what should happen? So here, this would go to Facebook, this would go to Twitter, LinkedIn. Apply now would take you to YouTube. So you could have a custom, you could do this in the header too if you wanted to have something fancier in the header. And the way you do that is, the way you tell it what the image map is, would be, this one has an image map. And again, this looks like nonsense here. This is just HTML, but the program that you use to create it would generate this for you, and you could just paste it in. But that's more advanced. I just wanted to make sure the capability was there to do it in case somebody wanted to have an image that had sort of hot areas by giving the capability to embed code. But that's sort of advanced. It's a feature that's there, and if you want your image to be clickable and for something to happen, you would do that with an image map. Otherwise, you could just embed a link right inside the message itself. I'm not sure how to do that. So you can put links anywhere inside here. You can put the regular HTML links, HTTP blah blah blah, the big ugly URL like we have up here, or you could do. You could just say, okay, when they click these words, I want something to happen. And you do that just by highlighting the words or word that should be linked, and then just clicking this link button here. And just like the image, you would just type the URL. So when I click here, I want it to go to okay, and then whether or not you want to open a new window for anything, I'll just say insert. Okay, so see that's hot now, and if I do the preview, and I click there, it should open a new window to Buffalo view, and it does. Okay. So everything you essentially need to create an email message that's presentable and good looking is the tools are here. I would just say preview first. And again, these are real messages that are going out to applicants now. So it looks nice and clean. You have the footer here. Oh, I hope I didn't add that by mistake. I think I did. I better take it off. And again, and as you get into this, you might have more questions about how to do certain things. But one nice thing is you do have default messages we're sending out now. So if you see, you can preview from here any one of these messages. And if you see something in there that you like, and you want to be able to copy it, a good way to do that is to just make a copy of the message. It'll be disabled, and then you can go in and you can change the title and change the content. But it gives you a good starting point for sort of the layout that you're going for with whatever message you're creating. So I wouldn't dig in here. I wouldn't click one of these and then go to that page and see it, look at the preview there. Just take advantage of the fact that you can preview from here. You can make copies from here, and then of course you can see the logs of messages that have been sent here. And the logs are pretty bare bones, but we do have a new dashboard feature that is going to be sort of complementary to this, and what that's going to give you on the home page here. create channels that will show you for all your active messages what the activity has been for the day or month or whatever, however often you want that updated, just so you can see what's happening. Because like, one of the biggest problems with things like this is, you know activity might be going on, but you have to go, you know, to 3 screens and then look at the log, or, you know, look at the number sent and say, well, okay, I see the number sent, but that doesn't tell me how many were sent this week, or that doesn't tell me how many were sent, you know, last month. So we're gonna create a channel here, a configurable channel that will allow you to sort of see what you want to see about communication. So that, again, we're calling that our dashboard approach, and this really isn't a dashboard because none of this is active. But we're gonna allow you to add channels here to see certain activity, whether applications are being submitted, updated, and then another one for communications. So I'd say that's the biggest biggest enhancement we still need to make for this, is to give you a way to see how often things are happening. And that's more important for your own, the messages that you were going to create. Again, this only gives you the number. But if you go to the log, let's say I look at the log here, I mean, it actually tells you the dates that were sent. Okay, so on this date, at this time, the message went to 2 people, 3 people. You know, this message was sent once on this day. So it's not beautiful, but it serves the purpose. And it gives you a little bit of a historical view of when the messages were sent. They're showing up here. And we have a lot of other improvements planned, but I mean, again, the whole purpose was to get this to, get this into the application manager so you can start using it as soon as possible. And the core set of features are, tools you need to be able to facilitate automated communication are in the system now, and they're active, and this is live. So all we need to do is give you access, and what we're going to do is create a new user level that's the same as the level you have now, with the addition of the access to these two email options. And we didn't want to sort of release this to everybody, because if you know, if somebody were to see this and they weren't in this room, they might not understand how to set things like filters, and they might accidentally send messages to the wrong group of people, or too many people. So there's this is the feature set that's in there now, and we're going to be improving it. We realize this is sort of minimal requirements just to be able to send messages. But I think you'll find that everything you need to send basic messages is already here, and we're going to be improving this as we go.
So what are we doing this week?
When you ask Lisa?
Hey, Lisa.
Lisa's the gatekeeper of security in Bradman. I'm just a figurehead.
One more question, like Lisa, you created the, published the header. Did you guys do that in your office?
No, that was done through outside source.
In our national app, we have the ability to do something like this, where we sort of run the report and everything is set to people meeting criteria, that kind of thing. But there's also, there's a neat feature that may be hard to do, I don't know, where when you're looking at an applicant's record, there's a button that says send email, and it opens up like the third screen in, so that you can say, I want to send this person this particular email. Like, you can do this manually, in other words.
Okay.
It's kind of, and it's neat because if somebody sort of calls you and says, well, I didn't get the UBIT email, you don't have to run the whole thing again. You can just manually go and resend to that particular person.
No, that's a good idea. So if I'm understanding this correctly, I would say, you know, send the email, and then it would just give you a list of, say, these emails, right? You wouldn't want to actually change the
Right.
content. You
Nope.
would just say, these are the canned messages.
Yep.
Send,
Yeah, I want to resend this one canned message to this one
Oh, that's
person.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
And they do it as a button on, it would be on the application. It would be like send email. You
Yeah.
would hit that, and it would take you to like, I think the third screen in from here maybe.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you pick the canned message that you want and say, I just can I just send this manually to this one person and this group of people in the two field.
Yeah. Now, I can see that, that may be something we could add to the application list, or list view.
In the filters, is there a search option
even sure. I think there is. Oh, you mean here?
Yeah,
No,
there.
no, we don't.
Maybe
we-
that's where you can put.
Yeah, you could do it that way for, if you wanted to send to an individual. There are other, we just didn't put first name in here because first name, last name, like something that would be, or email, that would be specific to one person. But that is it's a good, and it really wouldn't, it would take me, but, 15 minutes to add new fields to this.
Maybe email would make the most sense.
Yeah, email, but then you would have to come here to do that, and then the rule would only, that rule would only be true for that one person as opposed to the group. So what I like about this idea is that you could say, I'm thinking that it might be something we would put here, like an optional button to put on this screen. So let's say email applicant. Right now, it just does this, but it really shouldn't. What it should do is give you a list, a list of the available messages that you create, or give you an option. Say, do you want to just do one from scratch, like this would do, or do you want to choose one that you've already created, and then and send it, send that message to the person. Maybe a preview button so you can verify that it is the, right out of the gate, it would just show you the title of the message, but maybe a preview button next to it, so that it would pull up and say, okay, yeah, this is definitely a message I want to send, and the capability to send that message right from the app, right from the list page. That's a good idea. Yeah.
So-
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, another thing, I wonder if there could be a log on applicants, an email log on the individual applicants.
Yes, yeah, that is one of the enhancements that we're planning. I didn't mention it, but we know, we're already tracking behind the scenes, every message that was sent to each applicant, so it really isn't difficult for us to say, for right now, the view is different. We're saying, here's the group email, and here are all the applicants that received it, but we want the inverse of that. We want to be able to look at an applicant, and let's say, just to kind of walk through a scenario, let's say there was a button here that had a number that said, okay, email the message is sent, and it had the 6 or something. You would click that, and it would show you the message, the date it was sent, maybe even whether or not the applicant had read it or opened it. So yeah, we are planning that, and then maybe also a consolidated view, where you get all of that in one place, where it just says this applicant, and then the messages, next applicant messages, or vice versa, where you had messages, here are all the applicants that received it. So yeah, those are all very, very useful, but most useful is what you said, and that's the capability to see from this interface, without jumping through hoops, just from here, because those two new features, the two new menu options are really just for you. Whereas the capability to send an email or to see emails that were sent to an individual is really no different than being able to see what documents they've uploaded or the letter recommendation. So that should be here, and that should be available to everybody who has access to the application manager. So that's a really good idea. So yeah, if that's in there, I'll do that. That'll be the first thing I do, is add a column here that is that what you had in mind? Something from here? Yeah. It really wouldn't be. It'd probably take an hour and a half, 2 hours to do that. And I think it's important.
So this is great for me to start an application, right? It's awesome. I'm just trying to figure out, so when we meet people on the road, that inquires through the website, I don't know, down the road, is it gonna be an opportunity that?
That feature actually already exists. Just like this one, we have an email engine for inquiries at the university level. So what I'm going to do is consolidate. We have the idea of inquiries, applicants, and then leads. People who have inquiries are those who filled out the form. If that module is enabled for your degree programs, so we get their email address that way. But you also have this idea of leads. You might get a list of people from somewhere that you want to just plug in and import in the system. So these communication tools will be available for inquiries and leads probably within the next few months. That's the next thing I'm working on.
That'd be great.
Unless Stephen Chow.
You'll never be able to promote, right?
Pardon?
You won't be able to promote though, right? From prospect to applicant.
No, but you will be able to link. There could be a link, you know, based on email address or something. The most important is that this feature set will be available for inquiries as well as leads. So if you did, you know, is that what you do now? You manually enter them?
Yeah, so we have our app check system, which is similar, not as pretty. So we're loading them in and
It's
zooming
not as
them.
pretty?
Yours is prettier.
Oh my gosh, then that must be ugly.
I just send out pretty emails, so it's nice with the headers and stuff, like right now it's like our logo and, you know, it's all manual, I put out the hyperlinks. So
Oh.
this, if I could just use one system for everybody, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what we might have is the ability to switch between them, if I go back to this. You know, the ability to switch between them. Because really all that's different is this page. You know, you're gonna have different fields for inquiries, and it's essentially the same engine. All this would be the same, and then the last page would be different, because, you know, it would just always be constantly monitored.
So then, like, is there a way, so if somebody fills out inquiry form on our website, is there a way to just automatically dump that?
We inquiry through Gravit inquiry system, or
No, I
do you,
mean, an inquiry form on our website.
yeah, do you have a form that's not part of GravNet? Because there is an inquiry module in
Right,
GravNet.
which we have that too.
Okay. Yeah, those people, you know, that would, this group. Where is it?
There.
This group. Yeah, so right now, we do send, we send automated emails at the university level to these people, but you'll have the capability to do that as well. That is the next, that's the next step.
I'm sorry if you said this, when you get the inquiries in there, could we upload a spreadsheet or something, or?
Yeah, part of the enhancements we're doing, makes a distinction between inquiries, you know, those who filled out the form, and leads. So for leads, and maybe in inquiries too, we're gonna have an import, just like we do now for our professional schools. You know, we have this, it's a basic, you know, you have your basic list of fields, and we would just say, you know, you have to have, you know, there are gonna be some fields that are required, email address being one of them. And I think we'll probably have another meeting before we do that, just to make sure that we have a good feel for what information you have on for each of these inquiries or leads.
I don't know if this would actually make a difference, or if this is just me sort of thinking like, wow, that would be cool to regulate. But, you know, I wonder on the inquiry form, if there were a way to say, you know, apply now, and it not only took them straight to the application, program application, but it populated the application with, so it was sort of like a promotion, you know, from prospect to applicant.
Yeah, well, they're already, I think there already is a link in there. See, our inquiry system is different than a lot of them, and the way it's different is this. When somebody submits an inquiry, there's no connection between them and an application, or them themselves and another inquiry they might submit 2 weeks later. In order for us to make a connection, we would have to have them, give them, you know, sort of a username, have them establish a username or password first, and then if we did that, then we could say, okay, well, yeah, we see you have an inquiry, or on the inquiry form, you know, start an application based on what they filled out. But most of them don't have very much information anyway. It's basically just their name and, you know, this, maybe the term year they'd be interested in a program. They might want to, I could look at the basic inquiry form, but I think that's essentially what we capture. So yeah, I agree that it would be convenient from the inquiry, but right now I think the implementation doesn't make a lot of sense for that, because of the way GradNet does it, where you can't just go in and say, okay, well, this person applied. Oh, I also see they sent these inquiries, you know, sort of like pre-application contact history. We don't have that in GradNet, and the best we can do is just say use an email address or something to go try to find that person, but even that's not entirely reliable. You know, 'cause some students use a bunch of different email addresses. So
Yeah, from a communications perspective, I think an applicant might be less likely to inquire too if they have to provide, like, set up a user and password.
Right, yeah, I agree. And that's part of why we did it, but that, the trick then is trying to, you know, identify the applicant. And we even have trouble now, you know, I'm not even sure if this is enablement, but we talked about years ago, just being able, from the application manager view, being able to see, oh yeah, they inquired about this program 2 years ago. You know, we kind of lose all that information because there is no, specific link. Or clearly identifiable, you know, connection between the inquiry and the application. So by the time the, you know, the inquiry communication engine is in the application manager, you'll already be familiar with the interface and you'll be able to set those up. But, you know, part of our goal to add these CRM tools is definitely focused on what you said. I mean, we need to be able to import information. If you go to a fair or something and you come back with 100 names, you know, you enter them here, but you have no way to send communication to them. Yeah, I agree. It is great. This is fantastic.
Totally.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so Lisa will work on enabling those menu options for everybody here. I would just say that if you have somebody in your department who might be using this, you know, using your credentials, I'm not sure anybody does this, but just be cautious, because if they don't set those filters right, they could accidentally send messages to the wrong people, or to a lot of people. That's my only concern about bringing this down to the application manager level. I want to make sure that, you know, people like you are using it, not just, you know, some student goes in and you know, accidentally deletes a filter and you wouldn't know it until you looked at the list and saw that, you know, 10,000 emails went out yesterday.
Well, that's not gonna happen anyway.
It goes back.
Nobody's sharing credentials.
Yeah.
It's for the enrollment managers right now only.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I think, you know, somebody said to me yesterday, oh, so if somebody messes up, you have to fix it. I said, no, I really can't fix it. You know, once the emails are out, they're out, so. And, you know, Lisa and I were talking, we're nervous about using this even now after.
I'm still nervous about
Yeah,
using it, I
because,
do.
yeah, we're very careful. So anyway, any other questions? No? Okay, well, I appreciate all of your contributions. And I think we have some good ideas, some low-hanging fruit I can add to make this even more useful next week. And then, you know, look for the inquiry engine, email engine to be brought into the application manager soon. And what we'll do then is we'll just automatically give you access to that too. Right now it's a separate interface, and maybe we'll just keep it that way. You know, behind the scenes it may not be, but for our purposes, it would be smarter for us to put an email manager under the inquiry menu, so that when you're looking at your list, you're only seeing inquiry messages. And again, the interface will look similar, except for that filter page will be different. They'll have different fields there, and then we're going to look at the ability to import over the months ahead. And that was part of our plan for adding more sophisticated CRM type features to GradNet. Okay. You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Those messages, so-and-so would like to call, email,